Hey guys, welcome back to Good News Gatherings Tuesday prayer time. I'm excited to have this opportunity to spend this time with you in prayer and looking at God's Word and thinking about how we can be a people of prayer. This has become one of the things that I think so many of you guys have leveraged during the week as an opportunity for you to really engage with God and take the time to be in connection with Him. And I just want to encourage you in that. I believe prayer is one of the most important things that we can do as a Christian for a number of reasons. One, just because it gives us the opportunity to connect with God. Two, it gives us the opportunity to kind of express how we feel to Him and give Him our thoughts and our hopes and our desires and share those with Him in a way that we feel like we've been able to communicate and we know that He's heard. But thirdly, and this is, I think, super important, prayer is an opportunity for us to emulate Jesus. When you think about it, Jesus really not only lived a life of prayer, he frequently got off by himself to pray and spend time with God. He taught us to pray. His disciples came to him and said, "Teacher, teach us how to pray," and he did so. In fact, if I were to ask you, what's the most important prayer Jesus taught us to pray? Many of you would probably immediately go to the Lord's Prayer. Well, of course, right? That's when he's teaching the disciples to pray, and he prays the Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, and we're all familiar with it. In fact, most people have heard that prayer at some point in their lives. And so that would be probably the immediate answer for the vast majority of people. But I want to just challenge you today to think about a second prayer that Jesus prayed and modeled for us that may be even more important than the Lord's Prayer. It's hard to say more important, but is equally important to the Lord's Prayer. How about that? And we find it in Matthew chapter 26. So if you have a Bible in front of you, I would encourage you to open it to Matthew chapter 26. If you don't have a Bible in front of you, I would encourage you to go read this later and really just spend some time thinking about what it says. This is it. This is the prayer. And Jesus prays it 3 times in a row. And I want to read this to you. This is Matthew chapter 26, verse 36 to 44. Right? And we're going to read this together. I'm going to make some comments, and we're going to actually try to pray as Jesus prayed. It goes like this. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Now, the context, for those of you that have read the Bible, is obvious. Jesus is about to die. And he knows it. He knows what's coming. He knows he's about to be betrayed. He knows he's going to end up on a cross. And he knows that he is going to experience death. It's coming. He's facing it. And he knows it. And he, like any other human being in that moment, is afraid. He's experiencing fear. He's experiencing the terror of knowing that he is about to die. Right? And he knows it's going to be horrible. That's what's so unique about this moment. Jesus not only knows he's going to die, he knows it's going to be excruciating. In fact, crucifixion is the word from which we get the term excruciating. So he knows it's going to be awful. And he's nervous, he's scared. And he says this, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And then he takes 3 other disciples, Peter, James, and John, along with him. And he says this, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." And you got to understand what he's asking them for. He's got his 11 disciples, remember, because Judas is off getting ready to betray him, right? So he's got 11 of his disciples, and he leaves 8 of them a little farther back, and he takes 3 with him a little further along. Many would say his inner circle among the 12, right? Peter, James, and John. And he gets them off to the side, and he says, "Guys, I'm going to go pray, but please just stay up, stay with me, stay alert, pray with me. I'm really freaking out right now, is effectively what Jesus is saying. I'm nervous. I'm scared. I know what's coming. I have to do it, but I'm nervous. I'm worried. Stay up with me. Many of us have experienced that in life where we're going through a really difficult time and all we want is for somebody to be there with us. Jesus was asking for the same thing. So notice what he says. He says, verse 39, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground. Jesus gets all the way on his face and he prays, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Now, I want to stop there and just notice what he does. So Jesus enters into prayer. He gets down on his face as a sign that he's really up against it. In this moment, he's really fearful. He's struggling with all the emotions that come with knowing that you're going to die and come with knowing that you're going to die horribly, right? So he falls on his face. It's the sign of like, God, I need your help. I have nothing to offer. I'm just coming to you. You know, there's like this deep humility and submission and worry that's gripped him. And so he's falling on his face before God. And notice what he does. He starts by asking God to remove this death from him if that's possible. So he starts by asking God for something. He begins by saying, God, this is what I want, if that's possible. And then he says the critical part. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Notice what he does. He asks for what he wants. Because for Jesus in this moment, he knows that he's about to die. He knows he's about to sacrifice himself for the sins of the world. And yet he says, God, if there is in fact another way to accomplish your goal, to punish all sin and yet save all of humanity, right? If there is another way, then let's do that other way. But if not what I want, but what you want. So he asks for what he wants, but he follows with, God, if that's not possible, do what you want. Do what's best in your sight. Do your will. He repeats this. Then he returned to his disciples and he found them sleeping. So he asked Peter and James and John to stay up with him, and they don't. They fall asleep. And he says to him, guys, couldn't you just stay up with me for an hour while I prayed? Couldn't you just stay awake for an hour with me? Couldn't you be here with me? I want to jump down a little further to verse 42. He went away a second time and prayed. And notice what he prays. My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it. In other words, if there's no way for me to get away from this excruciating death that I'm about to experience, may your will be done. It's basically the same thing. He asks for what he wants, and then he follows with, whatever you want, God, more than what I want. Verse 43, when he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. And I just want you to think about that for a minute. When Jesus was walking through this, he was personally experiencing this prayer, but he's leaving for us a model for how to pray. And that prayer is this. Or that model for prayer is this. You can ask God for whatever it is that you feel like you need or want.